Welcome back to J Street Ramblings. My name's Brandon. In this channel, you get to listen to me ramble about things that hopefully you'll find interesting. In my last video, I mentioned that it's starting to warm up here in Iowa and we need to get back out to the range. And before we do that, I would actually like to get some target stands put together. I don't know if you're like me, you get all excited to go out target shooting and you get your targets all set and they're typically paper, cardboard, something like that. And then you got to find something to put them on. In the past fall, I found these, let me spin us around here. I found these wire holders that obviously you can see the cardboard target sticks into these little edges here. And that doesn't work too bad. Problem I run into is every time I get out to the range, you got to stick these into the ground, and it seems like I'm trying to drive them into a rock. So that doesn't work out too well. So today we're going to put together some wooden target stands with legs that you can just take down and set up at your leisure. Primarily built out of 2x4s. Should be relatively inexpensive. You can kind of build them up as you go. Hopefully get a nice little collection of target stands and have a blast at the range. But before we do that, I've got to go get us some 2x4s. So let's do that in a minute. Gratuitous Hemi cold start. Well, I think I take back what I said about this being cheap. I forgot we're still in 2022. Almost $8 a 2x4, which isn't cheap for 2x4s. They should be probably $2, $3 a board, pre-pandemic prices. But anyways, we still want some targets to shoot, so we'll keep moving along here. All right, guys, so our supply list for our target stand here, supply and tool list. Essentially, we're going to make our stand out of one 2x4 8, and then we'll need some scrap 2x2s that we're going to use for spacers. We've got a drill, a driver bit, and I would say you could use 2.5 to 3 inch exterior screws. Probably a 1/16 inch drill bit or countersink for some pilot holes. You want a good tape measure, speed square, something to make some straight lines, and of course some sort of saw setup, which we'll pan over to. This is at all by any means, but something to cut our materials. And then for our uprights, you want some 2x2, probably 4.5 to 5 foot long. I've got 2x6 here, which I'm going to rip down into 2x2, and mine is 5 foot long for my uprights. So let's start getting our materials cut, and we'll get our frames put together, and then we'll move on to our uprights. Now, one additional thing I'm doing here for efficiency and somewhat accuracy purposes is clamped a little stop to the fence on my saw here, right at 18 inches. Now, it's not going to be 100% accurate because we're not accounting for the kerf of the blade, but it's going to get us pretty close to cut our 4 2x4s at 18 inches to start the base of our target stand. All right, so next thing we're going to do is we've got our factory edge on our 2x4 here, and the factory edge can be a little bit off of 90 degrees. It's generally a good idea to have a 90-degree edge just to make your project a little more square. Again, these are just target stands, so this isn't absolutely a necessary step. But we're going to go ahead and just cut off the factory edge, lining up against our fence here. We don't need to take a whole lot off, just enough to get a nice square edge. start cutting out 4 18-inch sections to start our base of our target stand. Right up against the top. Get that out of our way. There's our 4 18-inch sections for our base. Now we're going to take some of our 2x2 scrap material and we're going to cut out 4 3.5-inch pieces. So we're just going to simply measure those out real quick here. 3.5. Mark it. Make a straight line. Here. And these don't have to be super precise, so we'll just line those up and cut another one until we get 4 of them. Take these guys on over to our table and we'll get ready to start putting together. So now we've got our 4 2x4s at 18 inches and our 4 2x2s at 3.5 inches. And we can start to lay out our rough idea of how the base of our target stand is going to go together. So essentially, well, we'll just lay that way, that way. These will actually come together a little bit tighter here. So this piece closest to your leg here is actually going to be our 5-foot upright. The piece you have in there right now is just in there really for just a spacer. And if we want to get our legs a little bit more centered, we said we were at 18 inches, so we can just, you see we were pretty close, but we can just make a line at 9, make another line at 9, and we may also want to pre-drill our some pilot holes for our screws ahead of time here, so we might mark that as well. Let's just line up here, just roughly in the middle of those 2x2s. So now we're roughly centered. And we can make some lines here for our pilot holes. So we're going to make some pilot holes there, some pilot holes on that side. I'm doing is just lining up roughly halfway in the middle of the 2x4 here. Uh-oh. All right, so let's transpose these lines a little bit further. Boom. Boom. Same thing on this one. And there we go. Now take your drill with your either 16-inch bit or countersink and just make yourself some pilot holes. And it might be a good idea to do the same thing for this middle section here. Set that out of the way. So we're going to screw the inside boards in here. Let's just make sure everything's relatively flushing in. Tight. Hand tighten everything together is fine. Mark about in the middle of our 2x2. Turn our square over. About in the middle of our 2x2 here. And we can go on the other side as well. That, transpose the line all the way down. Same thing on this guy. And a couple of pilot holes right there. Pilot holes aren't absolutely necessary, they just make assembly a little bit easier. And might help keep from splitting out your 2x4s. Alright, go ahead and cut it there. Alright, now what we've done to make life just a little bit easier was thrown some clamps on here. One this way and one the other way, just to kind of help hold things together as we start assembling and start screwing stuff together here. Alright. And of course we changed out to our driver bit here. Don't want to slip too much, but again, these are just target stands, so you're as long as you get your screws driven in there, you should be just fine. There we go. Hitting our clamp on that side. There we go. Let's just make this a little bit easier here. There we are. All right, and so we got our one side into our 2x2s, And we'll go ahead and start by spinning that around and driving our other screws into our base. Without knocking everything off the table. And our magnetic bit's not holding the best. Probably stripped out pretty good, but again, we're going to be shooting bullets at these things, so we can always make more. And you can always use a little bit shorter screws. I think I've got 3-inch, and you can probably get by with 2.5s. And I think we're probably safe. Get this clamp out of our way. Get that guy where it needs to be. And a couple more screws on this side, and we will be in good shape. And we're actually going to go, I think, with a little bit shorter screws for this side, just so we don't run into the ones that we put on the opposite side. So I'll be right back after I grab some shorter screws. Okay, last set of screws here. Jump down to 2.5 instead of 3-inch, just so we don't try not to run into the screws that are going into that side. There we go. All right, and that should essentially be our base. And we can tap these guys out, and we might need a little mallet or a little something to help tap those guys out a minute. Now. There we go. Let's see if we can get that guy out of there. All right, found a better piece of scrap here. Alright, so now we essentially have our target stand base, and we need our 5-inch uprights, which I've already actually ripped down out of my 2x2s. So we can actually take our base, set it down here. We might need a mallet to get our uprights in. Alright, so I've already pre-cut my 2x2 uprights, and they're going to be a little bit snug, so we'll use a rubber mallet just to make sure we get them down into our base. That should be good. And our other one. There we go. There's one more tap here. And there we go. We're ready for cardboard, paper targets, and heading out to the range. All right, well, here we have it. We got 3 all together in total put together. And again, we made these 5 foot tall. But of course, you know, just a quick cardboard backer will be pretty good for range use. And you can throw whatever target you have on there. You can even take a Sharpie and make your bullseye. And like I say, a lot easier than trying to throw these stakes into the ground. Like I say, every time I've done it, I always hit a rock. But until we, I think that about wraps us up until we get out to the range, and we'll take you guys along for our next shooting video. Thanks for tuning in.